Did you like the Deeper in the Woods project recipe? We're going to use it today for something different. Hi, this is Kim with Mom's Creative Moments. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to use the Deeper in the Woods project recipe, but I'm going to use some different papers with it just to show you how flexible our project recipes can be. I know we did that on Wednesday as well with a different one, but this one is going to include the project recipe for Deeper in the Woods, which is a little bit of a different type of project recipe, I feel like. But I really like it, so I hope you do too. And we're going to use it for some of my Ireland pictures. But regardless, you can come along and watch how I assemble this layout, and you can apply it using your own papers and for your own theme. So I hope this will be helpful. Also, before we get started, I just wanted to remind you, if you're interested in joining me for a virtual CROPTOBERFEST, I'm going to be doing a full day CROPTOBERFEST on November 1st. It'll be on Zoom. And the different classes that I'm offering, I'm going to pre-record and post privately to my YouTube channel. So people who have paid to access the virtual CROPTOBERFEST will be able to access those videos whenever you choose from my YouTube channel. So hopefully that will be helpful and something that will be enjoyable for you. If you're interested, please check the description of this video for the Zoom link. Not the Zoom link, but for the registration information, and that will hopefully explain all of your questions. If not, shoot me a question, email it to me, and I'll be happy to help you. Also, we're going to do December Days this year, and December Days is also going to be on Zoom as a recorded lesson each week. Each week we're going to do 3 to 4 layouts, and we're going to start that at the beginning of November, every Monday night, and they'll be recorded so you can access them later if you can't be with us when we do it live. And it should be super fun. I'm excited. So I hope you'll join me for that as well. That information will also be in the description of this video. So take a look at that real quick and register for both of those, and we're going to have some fun. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and get this layout out of the way. Let's check out my workspace and we'll get started. All right, so this is my workspace for today. And as you can see, we are going to work on using some different papers, but doing the project recipe that was designed for Deeper in the Woods. So we did this a few weeks back when Deeper in the Woods came out, and it was a really fun project recipe to put together. And I was looking for something that would be fairly easy that we could use for the photos that I want to include in my Ireland album today. And I thought, well, let's just do a project recipe and use different papers and talk about some of the ways we can adjust it so that it can fit our photos that we need to do. So you'll notice that I have made a couple of changes to this to accommodate my photos. And they're not major changes, but there are a couple changes. We're going to use this punch. This is the Evergreen Trees punch that came out with Deeper in the Woods. And you can see that it's punched on both sides of the layout. And we're just going to move the ones that are on the right side of the layout because the photos I'm going to place there, I am making larger than those 3-inch photos that you see right here. So my photos are going to be 3 3/4 of an inch, which is significantly bigger. So we are going to add a little bit to the piece that we're going to punch in there and just slide it over. And it should be just fine because that 4x6 photo that they have on the right there mine is actually 4x5 1/4 already. So it should be just fine. Hopefully. Hopefully it'll be just fine. All right. So let's take a look at the papers we're going to use. So these papers, first of all, this one we're going to use as the base for a peekaboo pocket, which we are going to need. I like both sides of this paper, so that comes in handy because I don't have to do two different pieces of paper as the base. So we can add photos to this side, we can add photos to the other side, and all will be well. We are going to use this paper that is actually from Reminisce. Both of those are from Reminisce. And I like it because of that clover there. And the wood grain, I think, is going to stand out really nice and balance really nice on both sides of this layout. Let's see. So this clover paper is also from Reminisce. And we're going to be cutting this up and using this in the layout, but it's going to be kind of throughout the layout. It's not huge pieces, but it's cut into strips and various other things, mats and things like that. So you're going to see this throughout throughout the layout. It's a really cool piece of paper. I really like it. The other side's too busy. We're not going to use this side. We're going to use the clover side. And this final bundle of papers right here with the two plaids. So the very first paper we need to cut, I didn't have enough of, so I have enough of these two papers that we can do what we need to do with paper number 1. And so that's how we're going to get started. So we're going to grab my trimmer here and we're going to go ahead and scooch this out of the way. And we're going to start by trimming up some papers. All right, so we're going to start with paper number 1. And paper number 1 is those two strips that come down the center of the 2 pages. So where your hinges are on your pages, that's where that bold plaid is going to be. And I've got a dot here on one of my papers, but it's not coming off. So we're just going to work with it and hope that we can cover it with an embellishment or something like that. I'm sure it'll be fine. Not a big deal. So the other 2 papers, the one here with the dot and the white, slightly wider one, they are going to be these wider papers in the blue field here, and they will be going down next to that bolder plaid. So this first paper we're going to measure is going to be 5.5 by 12. So we're going to place it on the trimmer so that the edge of the paper is right on the edge of the trimmer, the outside edge. That's 5.5, and we'll just cut it right off and trim it so it's 5.5 by 12. So just a little smidgen of paper needed to come off of that to bring it into the measurement that we needed. This next one's going to be 3.5 by 12. Typically, but we're going to adjust it and we're going to make it 4 by 12 so that it works better with the photos that I'm using. So we're just adding a 1/2 inch, and that's going to be sufficient. I'm hoping that's going to be sufficient. We're going to find out. But it should work out just fine. Okay, so 4 by 12 for my version of the layout, 3.5 inches by 12 for CM's version. This one is going to make up the remainder of the blue field designer paper number 1. We're going to cut this into 2 pieces that are each 1.5 by 12. So there's one measuring there on the right side of the trimmer. Not going to use the crackle side, although we could. But I think the plaid's going to be a prettier thing. We'll see when we get there. But I think the brighter plaid's going to look a little bit nicer for what we want to do. So there's those 2 pieces, and that's an extra piece we'll set aside. Now we're going to grab the clover and we're going to cut this peach designer paper number 2. First thing we're going to do is cut off that extra strip on the right. We don't need that. And it just adds to the length, that direction of the paper. So it's just easier to go ahead and trim it off right at the beginning. If you're interested in this paper, I will put the information on it in the description of the video. And so we've gotten that little teeny bit of white back off, and now we can go ahead and trim up this paper. So we're going to start by trimming 2 pieces that are 1.5 by 12, again measuring on the right hand side of my cutting guide or cutting line, 2 at 1.5 by 12. And then we're going to need to turn that paper so it's horizontal, and we're going to measure that at 4.5 inches. So the horizontal line that's right here, that's the rest of the pieces after that are all horizontal, but we need to cut that first horizontal line at 4.5 inches so that we can make those squares. So 4.5, and then we'll turn it and we'll cut this in half at 4.5 and have 2 4.5 by 4.5 squares, if we cut everything right. So those are going to be mats. Then we're going to take that piece of paper that we just cut. I just turned it around so I can use the lighter version of the print design on the paper. We're going to cut 2 half-inch pieces that are eventually going to need to be, I think, 6.5 inches long, but because I'm not certain, I'm just going to leave them, and we'll trim them later. Because I added a 1/2 inch to that piece, I believe that those pieces, rather than being 7 by a 1/2 inch, are only going to be 6.5 by a 1/2 inch, but we'll just trim them off. That way we'll know for sure. And then we need 2 more 1/2 inch pieces, and those are going to end up being trimmed to 5 inches. And you can trim them in the trimmer or you can trim them on the page. And since I'm trimming those other ones on the page, I'm just going to go ahead and trim these on the page as well. Now, the next thing we are going to do is go ahead and cut a square. We need a 3.5 inch square. So decide which portion of the page of the paper you have left you want that square to come from, and then you can just jump in there. Fortunately, when we cut that 3 inches off, we get a full square that we can use as a scrap, so that's kind of nice. So here's our 3.5 inch square, and we're going to take that square and turn it corner to corner and make it into 2 triangles. So the upper left corner, the lower right corner, both of those points go on our cutting line. And then we're going to hold that steady and cut through it to make 2 triangles. All right. So now we just have one more piece of paper to cut for the actual layout. We're going to cut those 2 pieces that are part of designer paper number 3. The first piece normally would be 7 by 7 square, but because of that 1/2 inch that I changed on one piece earlier, we're going to change the dimensions of this one to 6.5 by 7 instead of 7 by 7. And because I want that clover to be a big part of what we see, we're going to cut our little bit off of the top half of this paper so that we can make that 6.5, or I'm sorry, 7, and then we're going to measure 5 inches here So this is the 7x5 piece that'll go on the left-hand side. And then we're going to take this piece, and instead of it being 7x7 square, we want it to be 7x6.5. So we're going to cut a 1/2 inch off of that left side because I don't want to remove any part of that clover. I want to leave the clover as part of what goes into my layout. All right, so that piece is extra, and the remaining piece will be on the right-hand side of our layout. Now this piece is going to be our peekaboo pocket base. So it needs to be 6x12. So as long as we have our arm extended and our trimmer here, we're just going to go ahead and trim this up and make it ready for our photos that are going to go into the peekaboo pocket. And that piece will just be extra. All right, so we're done with our trimmer. We're just going to go ahead and put that to the side. And now we can get started assembling some things. So let me grab my pages because this layout is built on the naked page. So I need my pages in order to build it. So this is the last page that we did together. And we're going to start by working on the left-hand side of this layout. Here is the picture of the finished page that we're going to go by as we assemble this. All right, let's start by putting this portion on, and we'll work our way over to that center. So I'm going to center my page on the grid on my desktop, and I'm going to grab my permanent adhesive and get some adhesive on the back of this piece. And then we're going to center it. So remember, this was 7 inches long, so we need to find our center and then make sure that the end of this paper is at the 1/2 inch mark on each side. And that will help us visually center that fairly easily. Just looking at it, making sure that it's centered. Put it right down, right on the edge of the jeeping. Good to go. Okay. Now we are going to grab 2 of those 1/2 inch strips. And we're going to need to trim these, but these are going to go down right on either side. So we're going to add some adhesive to the back. Hopefully that adhesive it might be over the edge. We're going to put that right alongside the edge, and then we're going to trim it right there at the jeeping. So I'm going to grab my precision point scissors and just go right in there, right along the jeeping, and cut that off. And if it's not quite as straight as you want it, you can always go back and trim it a little bit more. But for in the meantime, this works. Of course, if you had trimmed that to 5 inches on your trimmer, then it would be good to go already. And you want to watch look at the colors on your strips. See how mine are dark in the center and move to lighter on the edge. On the outer edge, I cut them knowing that there was going to be that color variance. So as I'm putting them on here, I'm making sure that the darks on the top strip and the darks on the bottom strip are on the same end. If that makes sense. So I don't have dark on the outside for the top strip and dark on the inside for the bottom strip. Oh, that one's a little crooked. I think that makes sense. All right. So then we are going to come in here and attack this from the other side. So now we're going to grab that. Let me put these away here real quick. All right, so I forgot to have you punch the two main center pieces. So these two pieces, the 5.5 inch and the 4-inch by 12-inch strips, we're going to punch these on the outside. And oh, you know what? Yeah, so I goofed, because you have to keep in mind which edge needs to be punched, and that was the wrong edge, but I'll fix it. I'll show you how I'm going to fix it. For now, though, we're going to, see, let me explain a little bit better. See, that should have been that left-hand side of the paper. Instead, I punched the right-hand side of the paper. So we're going to flip the paper over and start again, and we're going to punch all the way down this side, and it may look wrong for right now, but we're going to flip it back, and it will be the correct edge of the paper. Okay, so let's just take a look and play with this and see if this looks right, because I punched this wrong, unless I decide that maybe we'll use this whiter plaid instead of what I had planned to use, which is the light green. Let's see what it might look like. So that clover paper goes underneath to accentuate the trees that have been punched, and then we could use this white side with the crackle on it, but I really had intended to use the brighter side. Let's just play with it here. Let's see. So this is what I had intended, was to use the brighter sides of both of these papers. And I think I like that better. We can use those little trees to accent later. I think I'm going to go ahead and do this. So you need to flip the paper towards you and then punch down that left-hand side. We're going to flip it back over to the light green side after we're done punching. So we're going to do this whole side. We're just going to punch and slide, which you've heard me say many, many times before. Punch and slide. We're going to punch it 5 times so that we have 5 little groups, little pairs of trees. And then I'll show you how we're going to fix my little faux pas up there in the right-hand corner. Okay, so those are going to go together. Now, punching this other piece, the 4 by 12, is not going to be as big a problem, because that one just needs to go down the right-hand side. So maybe it'll even punch out that black spot. Who knows? Probably not, but that's okay. We can hope. All right, so that is good to go for the right-hand side of the layout. So we're going to save all these trees for a couple of different reasons, but mostly because we might want to use them as embellishments, but also because I'm going to probably need them. Well, I need at least 2 of them to fill fill those spots. First of all, I'm going to grab my repositionable adhesive. We're going to add this amply to each of the little voided spaces, or non-voided spaces, the spaces between the trees, which Emily will get a kick out of. She's always talking about the spaces between the leaves and how marvelous it is. Anyways, that's a kind of a family joke. So we're going to add this piece, the clover piece, over the top so that we can see it coming through the punched area. And then this piece is going to go on here in just a second. So first we're going to take the plaid, the brighter plaid. We're going to add some adhesive to the back of that. And go ahead and place that in the middle. So we're going to make sure that the plaid's the direction we want. I'm going to put it right up against the jeeping and go ahead and set it down. So we've got our strip down. We're going to go ahead and adhere the remainder of this. I'm going to use my repositionable adhesive, especially on this area up here with the trees. Then we're going to use our permanent adhesive on the rest of this, which will be good. All right, so I'm going to place this right up against this brighter plaid, the edge right up against there. Because I used repositionable up near those punched trees that I should not have punched out, it helps to keep all of that in place. And you can see, maybe not as well on camera, but I can see that the parameters of the papers I'm using are not the same as the parameters of my page, which happens every now and then. So I'm going to just lift this up and scooch it in. And when I scooch it so that it meets the papers that we punched, it'll be like that gap never happened, because not only do we not see it here where the papers come together, but you don't notice it at all out here. So it's just better all the way around to just move these in so you don't see that gap. So we'll get this one down here. Put that back down. Get this one. Love my multi-purpose tool. Multi-purpose tool is something that I never thought I needed. Now I feel like I can't live without it. Well, I can't scrap without it. Definitely is a good help for me. Okay, now we are going to come and address the mistake that I made. So we're going to take these two little trees that were the negative portion of what was punched, and we're going to add adhesive all over the back of these, not just down the middle, but all the way on both sides. And we're going to take these, let me just rub off my repositionable adhesive that's on my mat. All right, we're going to just take these and we're going to very carefully set them right into the spot they were punched out of. And if we're really careful, it will just fill that spot right back. We'll be able to see that in a minute better, but I had a little problem with my camera, and for some reason my memory card was full. So we're going to start again on the right-hand side of this layout and get this done. So the right-hand side is built just like the left, almost exactly like the left. The only difference is the size of the papers. And we are going to go ahead and take the bright plaid paper, and we're going to go ahead and get this put on to do this right-hand side of the layout. And the thing I would caution you about is, because I'm using a plaid here on this inside edge, the inside edge has a very distinct pattern, and I want that pattern to be the same on both sides. So that double brighter area right there, I want that to be towards the very center of the layout, just like it is on the other side of the layout. It's closest to the middle. So now we're going to place the 4x12 piece down, and I've already got the shadow piece glued on, as you can see, and the adhesive is already on there. Again, because I had to disassemble this right-hand side of the layout so that I could reassemble it for you with a memory card. So most of these pieces already have adhesive because of that. But we're going to put that down right edge to edge with the plaid. And then we're going to go ahead and line this up on my desktop and grab the piece with the shamrock on it. This one is the piece that needs to be centered, remember? So just lining up the page to make sure it's centered. Then I can line up the clover piece, the clover and wood piece, so that it is centered with that 1/2 inch hangover on each end. So 3.5 inches from center. But remember, we have a gap just like we had on the other side of the layout. So we're going to just scooch that forward so it meets the piece that we punched. And that way we don't have to redo that. All right, so now we're going to grab our strips. And we're going to place those on. Again, remember that the darker end needs to go towards the middle, just like the other page. So we're going to add that towards the middle. And these are already trimmed because, again, they were already on here. So we don't have to trim them. But if you chose not to trim yours, you'll need to trim off that extra 1/2 inch that's going to hang over the edge. So those go right into place. Perfect. Okay. So now we've got these 2 triangles, and the 2 triangles are going to act as kind of a accent for the photo that's going to go over here on the side. And because I don't want to cover up my clover, I'm going to lower that photo down just a bit, because otherwise, see, it would cover the photo or cover the clover completely up. So I want to see the clover, so I'm going to lower that down a skosh, maybe not all the way, but we're going to lower it down significantly so that we can see that clover that's printed on that paper. So we are done assembling the main bits of this. Let's go ahead and grab the photos and take a look at them so you can kind of see how these are going to be arranged. While we were visiting the city of Cong, which is where the quiet man was. While we were visiting the city of Cong, a portion of our group went and visited an old abbey, and this is what they call a fisherman's house. It's where the friars who served in the abbey would go to fish from the river. And so now you can kind of see why I needed to make my photos bigger, because with this photo down here, I either cut my son out of the picture or trimmed for a portion of that, the remnants of this brick house. And I didn't want to make that smaller. I didn't want to cut Michael out of the picture, and I didn't want to cut a portion of the house out of the picture. So I decided, well, I would just make it bigger, which works for my photos. So we made the photos 3 by 3 and, let's see, 3 by 3/4 of an inch, 3 3/4 of an inch square, sorry, 3 3/4 of an inch square rather than 3 inches square. And because that photo right there is 5 1/4 inches wide, it worked just fine because I didn't have to trim anything on that picture. It just added some to that middle light green strip. All right. So let's go ahead and assemble our peekaboo pocket. I don't know why, but I just think this green wood is super cool. And the clovers that are already on it can act as our embellishing for the most part. So we don't have to add anything to embellish this peekaboo pocket, which is going to be really nice. So we're going to start on this plaid side. And a lot of that plaid's going to get covered up because I've got 3 pictures that are going to go on that page. And so it really won't be as busy as it looks right now. Because you can see we're going to place these photos. And it's going to cover a majority of that plaid. We had this very cool duck pond area right near that fishing house. So I'm giving about 1/8 of an inch from the top, about 1/8 of an inch from the bottom, and then you end up with just a little less than that between each of the photos. Because the photos are cut down just a little bit to 3 3/4 by 5 1/4. And this is a little house that I'm pretty sure the ducks must roost in or something. Maybe there's food in there. The ducks would go inside there and then come out. So I don't know if they put food in there. I'm not sure how they'd get the food to it because it does sit right in the middle of all the water. But I suppose if the caretakers had waders on or something, they could walk out to it, add food. Who knows? But just kind of cool and different. All right, and then on this side, we're going to add these two photos, which kind of explain the different features in that area, the wooded area where the ducks were. And there's my sweet sister, who was part of the group that went and investigated and wandered through the abbey and the wood. And we're just going to leave those 2 pictures there and maybe add a journal box or something below those 2 photos in that space right there. We'll see what happens. All right. So let's go ahead and load up this peekaboo pocket. Whenever I use a peekaboo pocket in the middle, like this one's going to go in the middle, I always make it so that the fold over goes towards the back, and then that way it opens and closes more attached to the right-hand side of the layout than the left-hand side of the layout. So it'll go right there in the center of the page. And because of that, I want to go ahead and miter these corners, and that way it'll fit more neatly underneath the page protector. So I'm just going to cut a little angled wedge off of the corner, each one of the corners. That way things will lay really nicely when the page protector goes on. But we're not going to adhere this just yet. We just know that's where it's going to go. Okay, so here's our left-hand side of the page, and we'll pull down the photos that are going to go in here. We have this photo of the entrance to the Abbey, and then a nice description of what we're seeing, which is good, always good to have. It's nice when we take photos like that. And then the photos that are going to go on the right-hand side are going to be a bit of a a photo waterfall. I'll show you what it looks like in the flip through that we do when the album is finished. But here's the 4x4 photos. Several of the pictures in this photo waterfall are going to be different sizes, which is going to be a little bit tricky to put together. But I'll show you when we do, like I said, when we do the flip through. I'm waiting on some photos that I've ordered that I didn't know I was missing, but discovered just the other day. We can take our trees and that we punched out, and we can use them to create little embellishment areas by flipping them over so we can see the paper on the back, or creating a cluster in a space that is not that light green. So we could use it on the peekaboo pocket if we wanted. We could use it in the wood paper, or those are going to show up, and we can use that light green side as well as the stripes white plaid side of the paper. I think I'd probably do 3 different clusters of embellishments, probably one up here, and probably one down here once those peekaboos are on there, and then maybe one right up in that area, that general neck of the woods, on top of that wood spot. So this is about where we stand with this. I can't really go very much further without the other photos that I'm going to want to add. And just in case I need to rearrange anything, I'm not going to adhere things down just yet. So normally I would show you and I would add adhesive and adhere all these photos, but because I'm not sure of the additional pictures and where they're going to go exactly, I just don't want to adhere anything down just yet. But you will, like I said, see the finished product in the flip through, which will just be in a couple weeks, I think, because we are very near the end. Okay, thanks so much for joining me today. Until next time, I hope you have many more creative moments. Enjoy your day.